Hi, and welcome to Stillness Practices. So today we're releasing Stillness Practices, which is a wonderful, dynamic online course which has been many years in the making. It started 15 or so years ago when I started doing training courses in sensory development for people who weren't osteopaths, who I'd been training anyway in these things. There were people from all sorts of walks of lives. The purpose was to reconnect with nature, to develop our sensory awareness, to feel the great tides in nature, and to connect ourselves with an ever-expressing sense of health within ourselves. So that was the premise of this. And then 5 or 6 years ago, I wrote a book based on the practices that we were teaching on those courses called The Dynamics of Stillness. But what I found over the time is that people really like to be talked through every technique, because this is 36 different practices, which each builds on the last one. Each has a developing sense of opening our sensory awareness, and it's much harder to kind of do meditative practice from a book. It employs our thinking brain. It's much nicer to be talked through things, so you can have it not with video, with audio, me just talking you through each practice so you can really feel them and develop them. So each of these practices builds on the last practice. So we start by developing a relationship to an internal neutral. So we take our brain out of gear. From that, we start to develop a relationship to stillness, both internal and this great natural peace that holds us. And from the stillness, we start to open our sensory awareness to feeling these great tides in nature, the long tide, the great tide, which breathes and animates us in the moment. And when we start to be reconnected to this tide, it changes us. It slows our brainwaves down to much slower, more healing brainwaves. So these practices are all about also developing our sensory awareness, really becoming aware of where our attention lies, looking at fulcrums and developing this wonderful feeling sense, this felt sense. And as we do that, we start to develop our connection naturally to nature and to the cosmos. And there are specific practices around engaging with nature, engaging with the cosmos. And in doing so, we start to develop a deepening relationship with our own potency for health, our own potential health. So we reorientate our attention away from dis-ease, what doesn't feel right in us, to a sense of ease, what feels well, a sense of aliveness. And from that, engage with the feeling of an ignition, a potency, a potentizing of ourselves. And we learn through this tide and engaging with this tide and this stillness and motion from stillness, the ability to be within the flow of life, would be within the tide, within the great tide, or the Tao, being within the Tao. And all these elements connect, which is health, which is connection to ourselves, to oneness, to wholeness within ourselves, and to stillness. And this is far beyond a normal meditative practice. This affects us in lots of different ways. And I think it's valid, and I think it's a worthwhile practice. And so that's going to be available from later at dynamicsofstillness.learnworlds.com. Or you can see it on Facebook, that we'll have a link for the course. And I hope you enjoy it, because I thoroughly enjoyed making it. I wish you well.